Okay, we are back. It is episode 14 of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. It is Tuesday, August 16th when we're recording. This should come out Wednesday, we hope. If all goes well, Troy, we should have a podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, 50-50 shot that there are no technical issues, so fingers crossed.
Hasn't been a good go of it lately from a technical issue standpoint, but we'll be positive. Think positively. It's all going to be okay. So how's it going, Troy? What's new?
Well, it is going absolutely fantastic. And before we even start the show, I'm going to jump into kind of Troy's personal world and give a little update. So if you've listened to the show long enough, you know that I currently coach high school hockey on the girls' side at Minnetonka High School in Minnetonka, Minnesota. And the 2022 U.S. under-18 women's select team, which is basically the team, it's like the precursor to the World Junior team. So a lot of these players will be on that team. It's just kind of, I don't want to say a formality, but it's kind of the first step. And then the next step is actually naming the World Junior team. But on the girls' side, for that U18 team, we had 5 players make it from Minnetonka High School out of, I can't remember what the roster size is, but it's a pretty significant chunk having 5 players on the team. So I'm just going to name off their names in case they ever listen to this and they can get some pride. It's Lindsay Avar, Ava Lindsay, Ellie Kleppinger, Grace Sedura. And then personally, this is, I guess I should say it's my favorite, Layla Hemp, who is a goalie at Minnetonka, and I've worked with her in the past, and she played fantastic, and she made the team as she'll be a sophomore this year, and she made the U18 national team. So pretty exciting stuff. Their next step, they're going to go to Calgary. They're going to play in a series against Canada for 3 games to get them ready. And then the Women's World Juniors, I believe, is in January in Sweden. Now, one kind of negative about that is we're going to lose 5 really good players in the middle of our season. But good for them. It'll be exciting. They're going to do awesome, and hopefully they can take home the gold.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. So in the span of 2 minutes, here's what I heard out of that. Number one, you taking almost complete credit for the state of U.S. women's hockey and building in a baked-in excuse for you not to succeed this coming up high school season.
No.
All your players.
No, it's all the coaches. Obviously I work with the goalie the most. However, it's such a team effort because – listen, I only have the high school girls or goalies really during the season, and then maybe in summer training a little bit. All these even the players and goalies, they all go off and they do individual work with other goalie coaches. It's just a big community. And it's up to the player how do they develop if they're going to take the stuff that they're given from all these teachers and instructors and work with it. So I'm just super proud of all the players, and seeing one of our goalies make it was fantastic.
Yeah, so if anyone's ever wondered why they call Minnesota the state of hockey, this is a good indication as of why, where it's pretty nuts that you have 5 players from one high school representing Team USA. So that's pretty cool. And I guess as long as we're on the subject, Troy, on the men's side, Mason McTavish is really ripping it up right now, huh?
Yeah, the U.S. and also Canada are both 4-0. I saw in the prelim play. And so I think the brackets just came out. And if I saw it right, I believe Canada and the U.S. are on the same side. So they're actually, they're going to have to play each other right away, hopefully, if they both win, I think. I might be wrong about that. But, yeah, McTavish is lighting it up. 13 points, 7 goals, 6 assists. And then I also saw Connor Bedard's actually having a really good tournament as well. And you remember him, as we talked about, kind of the number 1 prospect in next year's draft. And I've been calling the Chicago Blackhawks tanking for him. So I think he's showing what he can do. I actually saw some highlights of him, and he just looks great.
Yeah, McTavish with 13 points already is huge. And it'll be interesting to see if he keeps up that play, if that will build hype towards the excitement, or hype and excitement towards the season, like we talked about last week, and what that might mean to his card values as well. One more thing before we get into the show real quick this week. I did want to bring up, just primarily, Troy, because I think it's kind of funny at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of you have seen, we're doing a video series where we bought a pretty expensive, right? A $225 box of 2019 OPC Platinum Hobby, where we're obviously chasing Makar and Hughes and Fox and all the other great rookies from 2019. And we've opened the box and have been doing a short video for each pack and sharing it on TikTok and Instagram every day. And so, 20 packs at $225 a box, that's like $11.25 a pack. And if anyone has, like I said, if you've been following along, you would know that roughly through halfway through the box, I think we're about $9 in total value.
Whew.
So if you're the type that loves slowing down for car crashes or watching train wrecks,
Yep.
or, people fail in the worst way, you're going to love this series, and definitely stay tuned because it's been brutal. And my only hope at this point, Troy, is that we can somehow maybe get Guinness Book of World Records in and get it certified as the worst hobby box of all time. That would make me really happy.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than pulling just terrible cards. Going in, you're probably not going to get your money back on a hobby box, but when you're getting pennies back on your hobby box, that is depressing.
We haven't had one card that's even worth $2 to this point.
That's awesome.
It's so bad. But anyways, okay, well, we do have a big show, lots to get through. Why don't you start, Troy, with the game plan, and we'll get right to it.
Definitely. We will start the show with a very quick recap of my Impulse Vegas card show trip I took on Saturday. Next, we take a look at some graded value comparisons. Then it's off to hobby news, followed by a look at the recently released 21-22 Black Diamond set with some value data and some of our observations of the release. We then continue our discussion on our hockey position Mount Rushmore as we now look at the centers. And I feel the crowd has been wanting the centers. We're getting comments, where are the centers? It's finally happening. So we'll have that discussion in a little bit. And then bringing up the end of the show, we will take a look at new product release information and any personal pickups and or sales.
So I want to set the stage a little bit for your Vegas card show trip. Just got back home. I've been gone for the last 5 days on a family little vacation up to northern Minnesota, where I'm from, to what we call cabins. I know other people call cottages in different places around the world, and country, but we're cabins here. And when was it? It must have been Friday, where I get a text from Troy.
Friday evening-ish, maybe early evening, late afternoon, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and this text says, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm actually up north at the cabin with my wife and her family." Why? And I get an invitation to go to a card show in Las Vegas, of all places, which, of course, at that point I can't go. And I really want to go. But I get, 8 hours of notice on this? So I haven't even asked you this, Troy. How did this come about?
Actually, I'm glad you did, because what happened was, it's so stupid. I was just scrolling through Instagram, and I targeted ad, obviously, because it knows I follow a lot of sports cards, hockey cards. And I get this ad that says Front Row Sports Card Show. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that, because I'm thinking it's in Minnesota somewhere. That's just how my mind went. So I jump online, Google it, and I'm like, it's in Las Vegas. That's interesting. And I started looking at, there's some bigger companies there, your Whatnots. It's hosted by ESPN, hosted by Fox Sports. Beckett was going to be there. I think Panini, some other big names. So I'm like, So I started looking in this more, and I was like, well, this is like one weekend where I didn't have anything going on. I can go to Vegas. I have a opportunity to fly out there. I can do this, fly out, fly back. I think I'm going to try to do this. So I looked, and tickets were, I think it was $5 for tickets. And if you wanted the VIP, which I did buy, was an extra $5, and it got you in the show an hour early. So I decided to do that because I figured if I'm going to get there, I'm going to spend as much time as I can. So that's how it kind of came about. Then I texted you and said, hey, any chance you can go? And of course, you couldn't.
Yeah, so I had bad FOMO all day Saturday. I was forcing you to give me a play-by-play of as far as like what was going on. Yeah. But it was an interesting opportunity, I think, from my perspective, even like going to be there, just as we have lamented a little bit here in Minnesota when we go to local card shows, you would think there'd be more hockey than there is here, but there really isn't. And so I was really curious going to a bigger show in Las Vegas where you might think, why would they have hockey? But then again, they have the Golden Knights. So why don't you give us a kind of a rundown, Troy, of the show itself, how many tables were there, and was there any hockey cards to speak of?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give my basic rundown, kind of some of the talking points I jotted down. The show, they kind of bill as being a focus on cards, comics, autographs, and collectibles. And it definitely lived up to that. They had everything there. The majority of it was cards. That was definitely the big piece of it. And as I said, I bought the VIP ticket. So I did get there 10 minutes after the VIP entrance opened. And there was already, just by Troy's, scientific method, about 120 people in line. So there was a big line to get in. So I got to the back, but it moved really, really fast. Ended up talking to some people in line. One guy was from Washington, obviously, and another guy he was from out east, but talking to him, no interest in hockey. They were there doing other things with cards. Once I got inside the show, it was actually pretty packed. There was a lot of people there, and I was trying to guesstimate how many people, and I looked at my ticket, and it was ticket number 1,500. So I'd assume that was 1,500 of the VIPs, and then you had the generals and the walk-ups. I can say there was definitely a lot of people there, and it was crowded. There was crowds around every table, a lot of people interacting. I could see a lot of trading, a lot of stuff going on. 120 tables is what they advertised, and just from my looking, that was about right. It was pretty big ballroom or conference room. A lot of tables set up. Specifically around hockey, there was not much. And it was interesting to see. I mean, I walked around to every table and sat there and looked around. I could find bits and pieces, some singles here and there, nothing spectacular. There was only one table that was selling hockey wax. And I sent you a picture of it. And actually, the prices were really good for what they were selling. But they had a good selection, too. And there was only one table with wax. The rest of it, I found $1 box or value box that had just the worst pro sets and the really bad cards in it. It's nothing. I don't think someone probably wanted it, but it wasn't that interesting. But from the hockey perspective, that's really all there was. The majority of the show from the card side was vintage baseball and basketball with some football in there. Like I told Josh, there was one table, they had probably 15 of those 5,000 count boxes full of basketball cards. They were the dollar boxes, just huge amount. There was at least 5 people at each box, clawing through and looking for things. So again, lots of vintage baseball, lots of baseball, basketball, there was some football, not as much as basketball and baseball, and then hockey. And there was more like collectibles from there was more comic books, lunch boxes, action figures than there was hockey cards.
So did you talk to the guy at the hockey table at all that had the wax?
For a little bit. I asked him if they sell a lot, and he said not really, but they do purchase a good amount, but they do eventually run through it. But he said I apologize, I can't remember the name of the shop that was there, but he said they are one of the few that actually does sell hockey product, which I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I got to believe some other card shops in Vegas talk about it. But, I saw one like kid and his dad buy a hobby box from the guy. So I kind of introduced myself and did a plug for the podcast. And
there you go.
Yeah.
Training you well, Troy.
Yeah, I got a network. And that's really hard. And it's not hard, but Josh knows I get into these crowds and a lot of people, and I kind of just, it's not panic, but I just kind of take a step back and, let everyone do their thing, and I'll jump in when I need to. But
Troy gets so nervous at card shows, and he never buys anything. So you did buy a box, right? I know you bought a box of wrestling, but I'm proud of you. You at least bought something. Well, I guess what I took away from your experience is it does really surprise me that there was so little hockey. Not because I guess I would think that Vegas would be the greatest hockey market ever, but they do have an NHL team. Yep. There does seem to be good interest around the team. And I'm sure that at least 50% of the people there were from other places, and Canada maybe too, or, obviously people in Minnesota or the Northeast go there quite a bit. And you'd think that there would be more interest in hockey. It just tells me that there's so much more room for our game to grow, where it's really underrepresented. I just don't feel like that there could possibly be that little demand.
Yeah.
Where if there wasn't 3, 4, 5, 6 good tables, that people would have been buying cards. But I don't know. I think it's all upside.
For sure. And I mean, I could probably have done a little bit better job investigating. It was really interesting to see. And I definitely, if anyone listening was at the show and was there, let us know. Let me know if you found hockey. I spent 2 hours walking to every table and like stopping and peeking down. And I saw one overpriced 1979 Gretzky. I think it was a PSA 4 maybe. In Topps that it was just way overpriced. Like, I can't remember exactly what I had, but I remember I looked up a card ladder. I was like, oh, like that's not good. So,
interesting. All right. Well, we will keep, I guess, doing impulse cross country trips to shows at random times and give our hockey report of those. But it was kind of cool. And next time, make sure I can go try, because it was painful.
Yeah, maybe next time I'll buy some hockey cards. I already had. You'll hear in my pickups, I already had some hockey stuff on order, boxes. So that's why I didn't buy anything at the show. But like Josh said, I did get a Select Wrestling 2022. Just I like to open that. And my kid likes it, my son. So we ripped that.
There you go. All right. So let's switch topics a little bit and look at some graded card comparisons. I guess to set the stage here a little bit, from time to time, I'm really interested in how the different grading companies are, not only from things like gem rates to how many overall cards they're grading, and then obviously there's the value side. And I've been thinking a little bit about graded card values for a couple of reasons over the last month, where now that we have CSG authenticating all the bigger purchase cards on eBay, so was it, Troy, anything over $200 or something at that point, is supposed to go through them for eBay authentication.
Yeah, that authenticity. the guarantee.
The guarantee thing. And then beyond that, as we know, we've observed quite a bit about how raw values are often exceeding graded values, like a PSA 9 or a BGS 9 or SGC 9.5. So I wanted to look back and revisit sort of where these companies stand. And so essentially what I did is I took a bunch, I think it was 6 of the more popular rookies from the last 4 or 5 years, looked them all up, looked up their raw value from PSA 10, PSA 9, BGS 9.5, BGS 10, SGC 10, and CSG 10. I'm not going to read all 80 values because that seems really boring.
That seems like it would be at a high school graduation, just reading all the names off.
Yes.
One after one. It's like, oh my God, when's this going to end?
That would be awful, I think. And I don't even know how people would follow along with that. But there were a few takeaways that I came away with. And so the players I looked at were all young guns, just to keep it easy. Kaprizov, Cale Makar, Adam Fox, Jack Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and Austin Matthews, right? I think, to me, that's a decent cross-section of the last 4 years or so.
Yep.
So obviously, it's not a comprehensive study of 1,000 players or anything like that. From a takeaway standpoint, the first point is the most obvious one, but it's still true, right? That the PSA 10 has the most value of the 4 companies that we looked at from a gem mint perspective. There was 0 cases in the 6 players where a BGS 9.5 or SGC 10 or a CSG 10 exceeded the price of a PSA 10, right? And to me, that's the most obvious one. I think generally most people know that. What's also interesting when looking at these 6 players is that the raw value is kind of getting back to what we would expect, or raw value to PSA 10. So there's about a 3 to 4 times difference between the raw value and PSA 10, right? So Kaprizov's raw value right now is about 130, PSA 10, 360, right? So just about 3 times there. Adam Fox is $43 raw, which seems really low, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
Does that seem low to you?
Does seem low.
And his PSA 10 is 207, so you're going from 43 to 207. Austin Matthews, 590 to 1530, I think I have for PSA 10, so about 3 times there. Elias Pettersson, 47 to 160. So again, generally around 3 to 4 times there. Interested, staying on PSA for a second, when you get to PSA 9, in almost all cases of these 6 players, and to me this makes sense as kind of a rule of thumb, the PSA 9 value basically covers your grading fee with if you think of raw value and grading fee, right? So if you're buying a Kaprizov for $130 and you're paying to have it graded at PSA, a PSA 9 value right now is $170.
Okay.
Right. So maybe what, $10 profit there. Jack Hughes, $70. Your PSA 9 value is $98. So maybe you're even losing a little bit of money there. Elias Pettersson, $47. PSA 9, $62. Austin Matthews, $590 for a raw card, $780 for a PSA 9. So it's still really kind of scary to grade almost anything at this point. But I think, though, if you're really confident that you have a card that could gem, or probably preferably you're playing the numbers game a little bit and you're sending 5 or 6, where you just need maybe 3 to gem to make sure that you come out ahead. You're probably not losing any or a ton by getting a PSA 9. But in the PSA 8 territory, you're definitely underwater at this point with the value of your card. So you have to be, I guess, look for a company that, like a group submitter that would do like a graded card review or something like that.
Yeah, with PSA 9s, I mean, it's kind of frustrating because you're almost just wasting your time after you get that back and you look at it and then look at the values. So the raw as a PSA 8 is kind of still not holding true, right? That was the old rule of thumb. If you had a raw card, you could kind of equate it to a PSA 8, but now it seems like it's, as we've seen,
almost basically a PSA 9.
Yeah, we've seen that convergence come where they're creeping up on 9s, and we saw those one examples where it was almost creeping up on 10s. It's just ridiculous.
I think, like I said, PSA was a little bit more of, sure, most people know this. It might be, maybe some of you, it's new information, but I think people generally accepted that to be true. Maybe the 9 value is a little interesting, but from here is where I think it gets really fascinating. Again, looking at 6 players, but it's a good sample size, I think. So when you look at SGC, Troy,
yep,
and the 6 players we looked at, so again, Kaprizov, Makar, Fox, Hughes, Pettersson, and Matthews, SGC 10 value is higher than the BGS 9 for 4 of the 6. Or BGS 9.5.
I was say, I was like, that has to be 9.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now that okay, gotcha.
I misspoke, right? So so we're comparing Gem Mint to Gem Mint. That's pretty crazy to me. So a good example here would be Adam Fox. SGC 10 right now is about 135. A BGS 9.5 is 102. Again, Adam, $102 for Gem Mint. BGS Adam Fox seems really low to me. But there were a couple sales around that. I wanted to make sure it wasn't a super anomaly. Another kind of really crazy example is Austin Matthews. So recent sales for his SGC 10 Young Gun were around the $1,475 mark. Pretty close to PSA, actually, at $1,530. Well, the BGS 9.5 has been selling around the $860 to $875 range.
Wow.
What's crazy to me is, I know as we've looked at the last few submission reports, SGC is not grading a lot of hockey. It's been a couple of thousand a month. But you have, and there were multiple Matthews SGC 10s that sold around that level. Again, it wasn't just an outlier, but it kind of makes you think there, huh?
Yeah, I still can't wrap my head around some of this stuff. I mean, BGS just, it seems like they're just getting hammered on everything, whether it's bad news and now it's their values. And it's not like SGC hands out tens like candy. It's hard to get them. So that's
my personal opinion on SGC. The couple things that they've had going for them is during the pandemic and during the shutdown of all the grading companies, they're the ones that I think managed that whole time frame the best.
Yeah.
And they lowered their prices in a lot of cases. They may have limited to some extent what they're taking in, but they had definitely the best turnaround times. And so what that did is it bought experience with collectors and using their service. The other thing that I think they have really going in their favor is their heritage on the vintage side, primarily baseball. But we just saw the Honus Wagner that sold for what was like $7.25 million or $7.5 million. Something like that.
Was that the Wagner? Or there's a Mantle sale too. Was that?
Yeah, and I think both of them were in SGC holders.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember if the Mantle was in a PSA.
It is. I think it's a SGC 9.5.
Was it an SGC? Okay.
Could be wrong there, but I know the Wagner was an SGC for sure. And that builds credibility, right? Again, different sport, but when you have the highest selling card in history in your holder, that I think does a lot for your value. So to me, it'll be really interesting to see if these values continue to hold and if they go beyond our admitted smaller sample size, then, if more people start grading with SGC. The next thing though, Troy, is what I found really interesting is, so I was under the impression that the CSG values are kind of crappy.
I will say, I was going to say from whatever I've read and whatever I've listened to, I've always thought that CSG was so far behind these other guys that they're just don't even look at them. Their holders are ugly. They're crap. I think you're going to refute some of that from the value perspective.
Well, I don't know. What made me really kind of want to include them, where I don't think reflexively I generally even would have, is the whole eBay thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, now this eBay authenticity guarantee has been around for a few months. It's done a lot for the profile of CSG from a sports card perspective, for sure. How is this equating to values? The other sort of perception that I had about them was, and I haven't explored this, but I know a number of people have felt that, well, the values are really low, but their grading standards and their grading heritage is pretty good. So if you can find a CSG 10 of like a Kaprizov where the PSA 10 might go for $360, if you can find one for $150, it might be worth buying that card, cracking it, resubmitting to PSA, because people believe that even though the values aren't good, but their grading process and their grading methodology, or however you want to put it, is pretty good. You'd have a good chance of crossing over or resubmitting that CSG 10 and getting a PSA 10. I was a little surprised, though, that the values were, in some cases, better than I thought they would be. So I'll give you a good example. Cale Makar, where his PSA 10 is right around 770 right now, which is buy the dip, folks, if you're interested in Makar, because if you compare that pricing to June, it's quite a bit different.
And that's not financial advice, right?
That's not financial advice. No. And if you take our advice, you'll probably lose all your money. This is how our lives go. But so the Makar PSA 10 is about 770 right now. The CSG 10 is 650. Right. So in that case, it wouldn't even be financially prudent to try to convert that to a PSA 10. Another one, Jack Hughes, PSA 10 value right now is about 285. This is for all the young guns. Again, I'll repeat that. CSG 10 is 220.
Do you know
now BGS 9.5 of Jack Hughes, Troy, 145. So CSG 10 220, BGS 9.5 145. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Were there a lot of sales from the CSG holders that you found? Like,
no, there's some players that I couldn't find one for, like Elias Pettersson, nor Austin Matthews.
Okay,
to get, they're going to be fewer and further.
Yeah, I was curious if you saw
between, I guess, but So I still think that might be a decent strategy to try to get some cheap CSGs and convert them over to PSA. But I don't know if the values continue to be as strong as they are. That might be a little harder than not. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention is, we haven't talked about this yet, but there is, of course, BGS has the BGS 10, which is a pristine, and then, of course, the black label. I didn't find any black label sales for these, but I did find some recent pristine sales. And this is where, right, we've been dogging BGS, I guess, a little bit from a value standpoint during the segment, but this is where you can kind of hit the I guess, winning lottery ticket on some of these. So Makar, the most recent BGS 10 sale, was $5,776.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So the BGS 9.5 is $743. The PSA 10 770, SGC 750, CSG 650. Makar was the most, or there's least variability. I don't know if that just has to do with the crazy demand right now, but that's a lot for a BGS 10. And then similarly for Adam Fox, right, where a PSA 10 is worth $207, the last BGS 10 sale was $3,700.
Wow.
So it's like, what, 16x difference between. So there is that, people still incredibly value the BGS 10 grade. And I'm sure a black label would be even a multiplier above some of these sales.
I mean, I think this is a pretty consensus. I think the black label is by far the absolute best looking label. It's just, you don't see them very often. Few and far between.
So I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's definitely not I don't know how many conclusions you can draw at this point. Wanted to share mainly more observations, if that's a good way to put it, Troy. But like everything we track, we'll keep following the data and give some more updates and comparisons down the road. Again, to me, it's the SGC strength in pricing, the weakness in BGS, and also the relative strength in CSG.
Yeah, I was just thinking off the top of my head with Austin Matthews. Did we have a listener ping us on Instagram like really early when we started, and they were looking at buying was it a BGS black label for Austin Matthews Young Guns? I thought it was, but now it's so far back.
I think so. If that was you, reach out to us again.
Yeah, reach out to us and let us know. I'm pretty sure there was something about that, and I can't remember if the trigger was actually pulled or not.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I would like to look at that card again because that's pretty amazing. Okay, so there's a couple hobby news items that we wanted to cover this week. The first one is the Wayne Gretzky rookie PSA 10. This is the 1979 Topps Population 2. If you recall, there's 2 of the OPT version of that card as well. This went up for sale or at auction on, I think, the 5th it started, right, Troy? Or the 6th of this month.
That sounds right.
Heritage.
Yeah.
And so we're about, I don't know, halfway through the auction, maybe a little more than halfway through. And just to give a quick update, checked a few minutes ago, the current bid's at $490,000 with 11 or so days left. Their estimate was $1 million and up. It'll be really interesting to see the health of the top end of the market, where this lands. We don't have David Chow on right now, so he would probably be better at giving. I guess I don't have a lot of context, Troy, at roughly 500,000 with 11 days left. Is that good or bad, or what that means for where this card will end up? But just wanted to give that little update.
Do you know if that 490 or 500,000 is that including the buyer premium, or would that be tacked on? Do you might not know it off the top of your head.
I don't know how Heritage labels it, but I'll check that out.
I always forget about buyer's premium and all that.
Our next up. So if you've got a couple of houses of disposable income and you think 500,000 is a steal, you might want to go and bid on that card. The other hobby news topic that I wanted to bring up real quick, Troy, and I don't know if you saw I guess now, again, BBCE is in a little bit of controversy. Have you been following that at all?
I did actually follow that and watch the actual video being open. And I saw some guy on YouTube do a breakdown of the box and kind of explain what was going on and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating stuff. So for those that don't know, BBCE is a company that has been around for a long time.
Yep.
I don't exactly know how many years, but many, many. And they are authenticators of sealed wax boxes. And so a lot of times you'll be at a card shop or at a card show. You'll have two different wax boxes. One will have the BBC wrapped version that has their logo all over it. And typically those go for a huge premium, right? Because you're buying that, okay, this has been authenticated, that it's not tampered with or unopened, and the original cards are in the box, right? Well, there's been a couple big controversies now that I think have really brought them into question a little bit. The first was it 6 months ago or so? Many of you probably saw that Logan Paul bought a case of what he thought was sealed original first edition. I'm not a big Pokemon guy, but Pokemon cards. Yeah. Then they opened the box or the case or one of the boxes, and it ended up being G.I. Joe cards or something like that.
It was all G.I. Joe cards.
And this sealed case had been authenticated by BBCE. And so reputationally, they took kind of a hit there. Well, now at the National, I think it was, I don't know, was it the Card Porn Instagram site and some other social influencers had bought a couple $100,000 at least box of 86 Fleer basketball. So this would be the box with the Michael Jordan rookie in it, of course. And as they're opening the box, there was really weird collation to the cards that were coming out. I think they were all in alphabetical order, which if you're a Jordan expert we've seen this in hockey, right? Where people have, I think in a Series 2 box, if you run into a Lockwood, Young Guns, right? You're more often than not going to get a Cider. So it's like breakers will kind of learn these patterns as they open case after case of these products. Well, when there was a time when 86 Fleer basketball, you could have gotten boxes for nothing. So people have opened tons of these boxes, and there's a definite pattern. And this box was really far outside the pattern. Then there was some issues like that the gum didn't look real old. It wasn't sticking to the card or basically disintegrating. It looked like a new, fresh piece of gum. And there's a lot of people that are calling out BBCE again and saying there's no way that this box is authentic or authentically sealed in its original condition, right? And I'm definitely not an expert in Fleer basketball or anything like that, so I can't say for sure, of course, whether it is authentic or not. But what I can say, and this is my personal opinion, and I'd be interested to get your input too, Troy, is I'm not sure I would pay a 2 times premium or whatever people charge for that BBCE authentication anymore. In my mind, it's definitely taken a hit, the value of their service.
Yeah, I agree. And getting to that final point where you just said, if people are wondering why we're talking about this, you just stated it. If you find hockey cards that are sealed by BBCE, I would really think twice about if it's a high value product, because this now is 2 times in the last 6 months they've been duped. And my thoughts on these whole controversies, the one with Logan Paul, that one I take BBC totally to task, because they had warning signs. They had people showing them on the box stuff, or on the case, stuff that didn't look right with how the tape or some numbering. There was stuff pointed out to them, and they still just went ahead and authenticated it. And you could, when you saw when it was open, that was wrong. This one I struggle with the basketball one, because I believe it was sealed, right? It's not like they could open it and look at the packs, look at the cards, and then seal it all back up and say it's good, right? I mean, I think the basketball one is probably a little bit harder, but there was probably enough maybe tells that something was not right with it.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue, Troy, people are having is that BBCE is actually coming out and doubling down.
Oh yeah, don't and even start on that. They're public relations.
That it's an anomaly. You're right. If a box is shrink wrapped, there's only so much you can. I guess I'm not sure how the different shrink wrap technologies work, and if they would be experts in how to age that type of process or not. But I think them doubling down probably wasn't the smartest thing from a PR perspective. But I do, like you said, I think it's very relevant to hockey collectors, because we have a card shop that, I don't think it's fair to mention who it is, but that's not too far from us, that has in those cases, Troy, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That they have the hockey wax, and you'll have box one that is not BBCE authenticated, that may be $150, and they want $350 for the same box that has that authentication. And to me, I guess everyone make up their own mind, but I'm not seeing the $200 premium.
Yeah. Well,
in that.
And especially, you're right, how they've handled it has just been, I don't know, it's definitely not a masterclass in public relations. Like, just straight up coming up and doubling down instead of saying, hey, we're going to take some time, review our processes, see if, you know, where we think something happened. You know, I'm not the greatest public relations person, but there's something better than immediately coming out and saying, no, we're doubling down. You know, it's good. It's legit. And even with the worst thing what they did was let that whole Logan Paul case be taped as they opened it, because the head guy was right there. And he just goes, well, we've all been duped. No, well, you've been duped. And like, I don't think they handle things well.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think it really points out a flaw in the model.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what they charge for authentication. Maybe I should have looked that up.
Yeah.
But if I was running a company like that, right, I would sit and I would think, okay, there's no way I'm not going to make a mistake at some point. Right. Because like you said, you get a very limited view. You can't dig into a box to the point where you make it unsealed, because that kind of defeats the whole purpose. Right. But I would think that within your billing or within your business operations, that you would have some sort of insurance policy where people that are authenticating through you, part of the fee that they pay is the premiums for these policies, so that you can offer a guarantee, right? That if you have that if the box doesn't meet these criteria, and you can prove that it doesn't, that you will refund the value of the box to people and make them whole. Because right now, what I don't get about this BBCE model is they get all the reward, right? And but they share, but you so I paid a premium to have my box authenticated. Well, now it turns out it's not authentic. And now I'm not only out the value of the cards, I'm out the premium I paid to you. And the authenticating company, in this case, BBCE, just says, well, sometimes it's not authentic.
Yeah. And they, Card Porn's showed the contract or whatever, and it says in there that BBC is not liable. And I guess if people signed it, at the end of the day, they're not, but it really looks bad.
Yeah. So again, enough on that. I just thought it was interesting, and I do think it's applicable because, like I said, we do know that local card shops and others are selling these authenticated boxes, and they typically want a big premium for them. Okay, let's move along to Black Diamond. Juicy topic, exciting topic. We had a big release in the past week, and I know I've watched a lot of breakers opening product, and Troy, you have too. So maybe I'll turn it over to you to start with what's your general observations of Black Diamond?
You know what I'm going to say first? My first observation is I never knew how much hatred was built up inside of me for these manufactured patches. I don't know why this is hitting me so hard right now. And I've seen manufactured patch cards before on like eBay listings. But man, for some reason, I'm not digging them in Black Diamond and it's probably coming around the price point. If I'm paying that much for a hobby box, I don't want a manufactured patch, but that's just me. I fully understand there's people out there that might like them, and it's probably a snobby take on my end, but I would like to see those go away. You might have a different opinion, but.
Well, I don't like manufactured patches, but I've been trying to think a lot about the why.
Yeah.
Right? Why is Upper Deck doing this? And I ultimately don't know. They surely haven't told us. I guess if we want to start with the negatives, I would throw the sticker autos in there too. And in some of the Black Diamond versions, they don't look particularly great either.
Yeah, on the sticker autos, do you think it has to do with the card surface at all? Because I've never held a Black Diamond card. I mean, obviously those stature surfaces are kind of a mess at times with the bubbly ink, but I've always wondered with the sticker autos with Upper Deck, because it's not like they're not known for sticker autos, right? Like Panini's mostly, they're.
Yeah.
I was just curious if it was like a surface thing, or like you, I don't like sticker autos either, but I'll live with them. I've bought sticker autos. They're not the worst thing to me, but they're not the greatest either. So.
Well, if you try to think logically, it could be a number of things, right? It could be, hey guys, it's a pandemic. Do you have 300 cards hard signed? We have to somehow transport these cards safely with the Upper Deck representative, get the player in a room, legally travel maybe to a foreign country like Canada, where they may not allow us to do that, versus it just seems like logistically FedExing a bunch of stickers to sign would be a lot easier in maybe some real legitimate ways.
Yeah.
The other reason it could be a value play, right? You look at, because not every card, and I think this is important to note, not every card in Black Diamond is a sticker auto.
Yep.
Right? The Exquisite Collection cards, I believe, are hard signed, right, Troy? Am I making a...
No, I believe so. I'm trying to find that information. So keep going.
And this goes into like the whole patch, I think, conversation too. And what I've been thinking about, because again, I don't like manufactured patches either, but if every card that had a patch was a beautiful 5-color game worn middle of the logo of the whatever team they're on patch, then it would be really hard to distinguish a Cup RPA from or an Exquisite RPA from a patch that comes in Series 2 or Extended or even a product like Black Diamond, right? So there could be sort of a value hierarchy attached to these patches as well. And so I don't know if that's in defense of Upper Deck or not, but I can understand sort of some of the issues that if they want to produce the amount of cards that they're producing, that you have to protect the value of some of these more prestigious brands or cards. The one thing I will say, though, about the manufactured jumbo patches, that I guess maybe two things in defense of it. Number one, they're nice patches. So they are putting real colorful like shoulder logos, or, so they're pretty attractive and they're big and they're multicolor. What's better, a game-worn white napkin patch on a card or a manufactured patch, which I'm not even really sure what that means, that's big, multicolored, and has a whole bunch of stuff going on in it? I don't know. I'm not sure that there's be 100% consensus.
Yeah, I'm still not a fan.
But what I do think, though, that's, to me, when this whole concept of manufactured patches has brought up, though, is a little bit of, I'm starting to get, and I'm not sure if this will resonate with you at all, Troy, but I'm starting to feel patch confusion.
Yeah.
Between, you have, like, we're seeing what now manufactured patches, game used, game worn, event used, event worn. It's like, I almost feel like I need Upper Deck to publish a patch guide.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
to help me understand.
To be fair, the whole industry needs to, because they're not, Upper Deck, in their defense, they're not the only one that does this. I've seen where they've had, like, I think it was the baseball signings. They literally hand, Mike Trout a jersey. He puts it on, takes it off, and then that's it. That's the 100%. Jersey they're going to use. So, keep going before I get into a good thing that I like.
No. I'm glad you chimed in, because I think that's a really great point. And probably Upper Deck may be, quote unquote, if you're trying to rank who handles patches the best versus the worst, they could very easily be the best. Yeah. So this isn't a Upper Deck bash in the slightest. It's just more, I'm just getting confused with all the different kinds of patches out there, and maybe others are too. So again, but I think, though, now to transition from some of the negatives, I do think overall, from a positivity perspective, I'm really impressed with the quantity of hits that are coming out of Black Diamond. And I think, too, especially as you compare it to the last kind of bigger, I don't know how we want to term it, more premium or higher end release in SPA, where sure, you might get the Kaprizov or Lafreniere Future Watch Auto, but most of the boxes we saw from a value standpoint or excitement or wow, I'm getting a major hit perspective, were pretty grim.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very feast or famine with SPA. I feel like Black Diamond is producing a lot more consistent hits, which I'm sure the breakers really like because people probably feel better about it. The base cards could this be the best base cards of any set we've seen so far this year?
I do. That was one of my really positives. I do like those base cards, and they're like thicker than a regular card. I mean, they look,
and they're all numbered.
Yeah, they're all numbered. They look like, I mean, it almost looks like there's 3 pieces of the card. I don't know how they're made or anything, but I think they look pretty slick, just from the thickness standpoint, and even from the side view, they kind of look cool. I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but I think we were kind of lucky to see on one of the breaks we saw. It was like the first one maybe we were watching where we saw that. Was it a Connor McDavid band of color one? I think it was a band of color with all the little...
Yeah, band of color.
I thought that looked beautiful online, obviously looking at it on a screen. I haven't seen one in person, obviously, but I really think those band of colors are really good looking.
Those are selling really well on secondary markets.
Interesting, yeah.
So there's been a couple that have sold. I know there's been a Swayman, Jeremy Swayman. There's been a Maritz Sider, and both have gotten over $1,000. We were watching the break where they pulled the Connor McDavid. I'm sure that's what if Sider is going for $1,200, that might be $1,500 at least. And so, and based on the reactions that we've seen when those have been pulled,
people don't know.
That's definitely a big win for Upper Deck, and because I believe that's a new insert this year. If my memory serves me correct. Speaking of secondary markets, to take a quick step back to go to those jumbo manufacturer patches, they are selling pretty decently and again, I think I'm going to maybe try to turn a little bit of a negative into a positive here. You look at like the Raymond patches or Sider or Swayman, who seems to be people are really aggressively buying right now, which is kind of interesting. They're going for about $100. So if the worst card in the pack from your perspective is, again, you have to get one of the top guys, but has the upside of $100, I think that speaks well to the value that the set is bringing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
So again, I want to see any other kind of observations that we had. A couple autos have been selling really well. Like a lot of the rookie autos have been going. I saw a Zagreus over 1,000. And in general, at least from the breaks that we've been watching on Whatnot, that people have been eating it up and, really interested. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to mention. And this is a passionate subject for me. I think one of the biggest values in Black Diamond, Troy, are the exquisite cards. Yeah, so the last card, in case you haven't opened Black Diamond or seen it open, the last card in the 6-card pack, again, it's an expensive box, right? Yeah. It's been about $350. So the last card's an exquisite card. They're usually thicker. And I think Tony had talked about exquisite a little bit on our interview a few weeks ago, but it's I think the huge sleeper in Black Diamond. For people that don't know, it's an elite sports card brand. It might be one of the most high valued brands ever. So it's definitely on par with the Cup and even looking at other like Flawless or National Treasures. So here's some stats on Exquisite, Troy, that I think are pretty amazing. So the top 10 exquisite card sales ever, right? And it's not just hockey. I don't think there's any hockey. I think it's all probably basketball. Have brought in more than $20 million combined.
Oh.
Right. And I think the top one is it was like 5.2 million. There's 15 exquisite cards that have sold for more than $1 million. Right now, does that mean that your Lucas Raymond auto is going to be $1 million card? No. But when we think about how we collect hockey cards, or I guess in particular how we invest in cards, which ones have the opportunity for long-term value, exquisite is a type of card that for the right player and the right card can be where you can really appreciate 5, 6, 7 years down the road, right? We're starting to see there's a bunch of McDavid exquisite rookies that are approaching or surpassing the 6-figure mark now. So definitely don't sleep on exquisite. And for me, and there's been a couple really nice patches that I've seen for Sider and Raymond. I think those are numbered to 99. I believe there's some autos in there as well. Those are, I guess, from my collecting investing perspective, Troy, definitely been trying to find some deals on those ones.
For sure. Yeah, they do look nice. Do you know, in like basketball and the other sports that have exquisite, were they kind of I don't want to say inserts, maybe not the right word, but were they their own product line where they had their own release? I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm going off recall here, so I hope I'm right. I thought that Tony had mentioned from Upper Deck, he was on a show a few weeks ago. Maybe if you didn't listen, it'd be great to go back. And, I thought it was a great article or interview talking mainly about SB Authentic. But I thought he mentioned that there's a little bit of a exquisite conundrum right now where they need to protect the value of the cup. And so they can't have exquisite be its own release. Yeah. And so they're putting it in as inserts on certain high value releases like Black Diamond. I was looking earlier today at the clear cut designs and previews. And I think that there's some exquisite cards within clear cut as well.
Cool.
So I'm not sure how many releases they're putting it in, but I don't think that they can they're afraid to devalue the cup. Yeah. And I know that a lot of the big exquisite basketball cards are LeBron rookies and Jordans that have, patch autos, that sort of stuff.
Makes sense.
So don't sleep on exquisite.
Don't sleep on it. I won't.
Okay, Troy, it's time for Mount Rushmore of Centers. Can you believe it? We've made it to the centers.
Been a while. I should say, I guess we forgot one thing in my criteria. Maybe you weren't thinking of this, but when I was doing mine, I was always thinking this is NHL. But some people brought up on the goalie comments about Tretiak from Russia. And I guess we never actually said, or we never said it, but I was always looking at NHL goalies. But Tretiak's actually a good argument if we wanted to look at all non-NHL goalies.
Yeah, I think it should be NHL because that more cleanly relates to hockey cards, which is the broader context of why we're doing this. Okay, so we saved the biggest position for last, and that, of course, is the centers.
Yep.
It isn't the last Mount Rushmore, though. Next week, we will attempt to come up with the, what do you call it, the penultimate? Or the ultimate...
the Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore of Mount Rushmores, I guess. I don't know.
It'll be very anticipated. I know the players themselves are very nervous about it. And it's a big deal to them, Troy, whether or not the Gong Show names them to Mount Rushmore.
Well, we'll have to get the trophies ordered.
Okay, so, of course, this must be the fourth consecutive week now. I can't remember who goes first. Do you?
I can go first because I'll take the easy one. And if you don't have this person, then we are quitting the podcast and it's over. Wayne Gretzky, number one.
Never heard of him.
Never heard. He scored some goals, I think. I don't know. Seems like he scored some. But okay, this is the big obvious one. Before I even go into him, you go read his Wikipedia, go look at Hockey Reference if you want to know all about him. There's no way you can encompass all his stuff into a blurb on a podcast, but just to give you the high level. We're going to try. Yeah, we'll try. Just to give you the high level stuff. Games played 1,487, 20 seasons. Goals, obviously first all time with 894. Assists, 1,963, which guess what? Puts him first all time. Points, 2,857, first all time. Points per game, 1.92, first all time. He is the only player to ever get over 200 points in a season. He's done it 4 times. He had 15 NHL seasons of plus 100 points, with 13 of those seasons being consecutive. And just to give you just the magnitude of his career at the time when he retired, and this was 99-ish, he held 61 NHL records, had his name at the top. 40 regular season, 15 playoff, and 6 all-star game records. So that's just my brief overview of stats. Josh, if you have any other awesome stats you want to throw in, feel free.
Well, I do have a few things. So knowing that this is sort of the Captain Obvious choice and wanting to make this part interesting, I did look up some random or factoids or facts and figures about Wayne Gretzky that I thought were interesting. I'll be curious to see, Troy, if you've heard any of these before.
Okay.
So Wayne Gretzky would still have the most points in NHL history even if he had never scored a goal.
I knew that.
Pretty fascinating. He won the scoring title by more than 70 points 6 times.
I did not know that.
That's pretty nuts. Only 5 players have ever recorded more than 150 points in a season. Gretzky did it 9 times.
I was just saying he's probably almost in double digits.
Gretzky led the league in assists in 16 of his 20 seasons in the NHL.
Yeah, that is, you keep talking about his assists. That's why I don't know if his points record, I mean, his assists are greater than anyone else's points. So his point record, I think, is safe for a long time.
Yeah. I know you're a big point per game guy, Troy, so I think you'll find this one really interesting. Gretzky could have ended his career with a 1,370 game pointless streak. So gone with 0 points for 1,370 straight games and would still have been a career 1 point per game scorer.
That is awesome stat that you found. That is pretty amazing. Think about him, though, too, like the stat I read, 1.92. Basically, when Wayne Gretzky you played against Wayne Gretzky on the ice, you were down 2-0. Before the game even puck dropped, you're basically down 2-0 because he's going to get almost 2 points every game.
That's crazy. When you think of even the last couple of years where getting to 100 points is been a little tough, right? I know we had, 5 or 6 this past season, but he was a 100-point scorer in 14 consecutive seasons. Yep. So from a stats standpoint, I also had, in addition to his regular season stats that you brought up, he has the most playoff points ever.
Yeah.
122 goals.
I was going with everyone would assume he was just the playoff leader and everything, too.
And his 260 assists is first all time. So if you add on to his 2,857 regular season points, his 382 playoff points, he's it's like 3,200 total points in the NHL, which is crazy.
That is just amazing. So obviously he's on the list. Everyone knew it. Four-time Stanley Cup winner, all with Edmonton. Awards and achievements, real quick: 9-time MVP, 5-time Lady Bang, 10-time Art Ross, 2-time Conn Smythe Hall of Famer, 5-time Pearson/Ted Lindsay Award. I had 15 first-team All-Stars. I'm sure he made more than that. Put him on second teams and third teams. So again, tons of records. Even those are records. Like
did you see of his 9 Hart trophies that 8 were consecutive?
I did see that.
That seems just incomprehensible. It's like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid winning 8 straight MVPs.
Yeah, he was quite the player, and I remember him. I was a kid, but I remember him. I think it was a North Stars game. They were in town. I can't remember if it was regular season or playoffs, but I had to go so bad. Begged my parents, begged. And I was literally just getting over chickenpox, so I'm not even sure if I should have been out in public, but they let me go to it, and I got to see him play. It was just awesome being a little kid and watching him. I love listening to all these stats and finding these little quirks about him or about his statistical brilliance.
Yeah, and the only other 2 little things that I had, or not little, but 2 points that I had are his 99 is retired league-wide.
Yep.
So, again, going back to our Mount Rushmore criteria and league impact and community impact, can't get bigger than that.
No.
And then he's also, I'll admit, Troy, I have to research this a little bit more because I'm fascinated by this subject, but he's one of these select handful of players that was immediately inducted into the Hall of Fame upon retirement. Yeah, they
waived the 3-year wait period, said you're in. And then now they've gotten rid of that rule. But I think you didn't you ask me about on trivia about it? Or I can't remember if you did, but I know I think Lemieux was another one, Gretzky.
Sure.
A couple others out there. I think there was 3 or 4.
And then really quickly from a hockey card perspective, obviously the 1979, whether it be Topps or OPG rookie is the iconic card in hockey. There's a couple I did pick the PSA 5 for both to look at just because the 10s there's 2 of each and they're both upwards of $1 million.
One's for sale right now. Why don't you go buy that?
$490 right now. So anyway, so the Topps PSA 5 has a pop count of 1,095, and the current value is about $1,071. It's down 23% in the past year. The OPG PSA 5 is double the value almost in 2017. Higher pop, actually, 1,248, and is down about 35% in the past year. Interesting to me that the OPG pop is a lot higher than PSA. I don't know. I'm not a Gretzky rookie aficionado, so I'm way out of my league, and I know people have crazy knowledge on this card, and I'm not sure if that holds true for all the other different graded levels, but I don't know if the PSA 5 or the Topps 5 seems like a good buy to me.
Yeah, it does. And I was going to mention one thing, not on cards, but before I forget, if you ever watched 30 for 30, there's a documentary on his trade from Edmonton to LA. It's called The King's Ransom. If you ever want to know about that, check it out. Because I had another point about when the trade was made, one of the, I don't know what you want to call them, elected officials from one of the parties actually tried to get the government to step in, or said the government should step in and block the trade of him. So that was just, again, going back to how relevant he was to Edmonton, how much they loved him. But if you ever get a chance, there's been other documentaries too, but that was one I watched.
Well, I was 13 or 14 at the time, and I remember it being astonishing.
Yeah.
That they would part with this iconic figure in sports. The other thing, this is totally off the cuff and maybe poor podcasting, but I have this, what was the cartoon with him and Michael Jordan?
Oh, it was like Super All-Stars or something. Yeah, I remember the cartoon.
So who were the athletes? It was Gretzky, Jordan. Was Bo Jackson in it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
sure
some listeners right now are screaming at their
I know.
phone or whatever. Don't you know it's this? Yeah, I do remember. I remember it very briefly, a little nugget.
So again, though, talking about the cultural impact, obviously, so we don't need to beat a dead horse here. Wayne Gretzky makes the Mount Rushmore for centers.
He slides in there just barely, but he made it. Congratulations, Wayne.
So, congrats, Wayne. You owe us. No, you don't. All right, so I'm next.
Yep.
So I'm going to go with Mario Lemieux. Ever heard of him?
I have heard of him. He is also a guy I think scored some goals and was a pretty good player. Yes, I had him on my list too.
I'll admit, it's like he seemed like a very obvious choice to me, and the more I dug in and researched him, the more, I guess, maybe a little pause it gave me. I don't know if that makes, because statistically he doesn't.
I know what
jump
you're
off
saying.
The page.
I know what you're saying, but the first thought immediate to my head is I know he was injured all the time. If I remember, I think I had a stat where I don't think he ever played a full season. I think he was always had some kind of injury, or obviously had the cancer diagnosis and all that. But
and then he had a lot of back issues and
then you start thinking about that with that saying he didn't play a full season and everything. His stats are still pretty dang amazing.
Yeah, and so it wasn't, obviously I nominated him, so I got over it. And the more I dug into the stats, like I said, we'll go over them in a second, it doesn't really scream at you, this is one. But then I just thought of the overall context and who he is and what he means to the game. And he's still very relevant, of course. Yep. And it became a fairly obvious choice. So he played parts of 17 seasons. I think this goes back to your injury point, Troy, all with the Penguins. More notable nickname, Super Mario. He was the first overall pick in the 1984 draft. His regular season stats are he has 1,723 points, which is 8th all-time. 690 goals, which is 11th all-time. 1,033 assists, which is 13th all-time. Here's an interesting stat, Troy, that I found. He's the only player to score 30 or more power play goals in 2 separate seasons.
I did not know that.
Obviously a monster on the power play. You mentioned he had a number of injuries that affected almost every season. He had the Hodgkin's lymphoma, where he missed all of 1994 and 95. He had chronic back issues. He was forced in retirement because of atrial fibrillation, AFib.
Yep.
He did win the Calder from awards and achievements in 1985. So he was the number 1 pick, and then went on to win the Calder Trophy, 12-time All-Star, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. This is, again, another area where I paused for a second. I'm thinking, man, to be the Mount Rushmore of centers, first of all, you have to win a Stanley Cup in my mind. And 2, and it actually made me think of Ovechkin a little bit. It's like, would we, even where he's at today, not yet the all-time goal scoring leader with 1 Stanley Cup, would he make the cut if he was a center for all time for the Mount Rushmore of center? So I think from a Stanley Cup perspective, this is kind of the minimum for me is 2. Now, as I say that, I'm frantically searching to make sure all my candidates have at least 2.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that as you said that. I'm like, well, I would like 1 cup at least, and I'm sure.
Yeah. So he did win the Stanley Cup in 1991, 1992, won the Conn Smythe both those years. Was it the 91 Stanley Cup where they bludgeoned the North Stars to death?
So the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mario Lemieux, are responsible for ruining that year for me because the North Stars weren't expected to do anything. And here they come just flying through the playoffs. They get to the Stanley Cup, and here comes Pittsburgh and just I think they rolled them 4-2. It wasn't even that close. It was, but we were so excited. I may have told this before. I had the boombox on top of the TV. And so every time the North Stars scored, we ran over and I can't remember if it was a tape, but it had Celebration playing by Kool and the Gang. And all us wild little hockey players would dance and scream around because.
Yeah, you didn't do it real often from what I remember. Well, and Troy and I have talked about this personally before. And anyone from Minnesota who's old enough will definitely know this, is that at that time, boy, it doesn't seem too odd because the NHL's never on TV, it doesn't seem like. But you couldn't get the Stanley Cup games here. You had to, it was like a pay-per-view wrestling match almost.
It was called,
you had to buy them.
Yeah, it was either Spectrum or Met Channel or something. I mean, I remember that. Yeah, it was a pay-per-view channel you had to subscribe to through the cable company.
Yeah, and so my parents definitely were not doing that. And so I remember lying in bed as a young kid, listening to the game on the radio and then just getting, I think the game I remember, did they lose one game like 8-0?
Yeah, they lost
something
one big.
Something, yeah. So he hurt the feelings.
Hurt my feelings. Still made it though. Good for him.
Minnesota North Stars fans, for sure, and Minnesota hockey fan. He was a 3-time Hart Trophy winner, 6-time Hart Ross Trophy winner. Like Gretzky, you had already mentioned, inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame immediately after retirement in 1997. Your guy, Troy, Bobby Orr, called Lemieux the most talented player he's ever seen. So there's a big endorsement there. He went on to, and I'll admit, I should have looked into this. Does he own the Penguins outright, or is he like a small, like the face of the ownership group?
I want to say he was, I thought he was majority owner for a while. I think he's done with it. I think the Penguins have been finally sold. And he's no longer in the ownership group, I think. And I think that was pretty recently, like a year or two ago. But at times, I believe he was the majority owner, or else he had a significant stake for being a former player.
Yeah, and during that tenureship's not a word. They did win 3 more cups.
Yep.
So take that for whatever it is. And then I just had, before I get into hockey cards, anything else you want, any color commentary or anything you want to add to Mario Lemieux?
Yeah, I'm going to add two points that I just thought were interesting. I don't know if you mentioned goals per game, but he's first all time for centers at .72 or 754, which I thought was interesting. And then this isn't relevant to him being in the NHL, but I saw.
What do you mean? Is that just because of games played against the North Stars?
It might be. It might be. Yeah. Oh, the poor North Stars. They were bad at times. And this has nothing to do with his NHL, Mount Rushmore, Hall of Fame, anything of that. But when he was in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey, he had a season where I said he had a video game season. 133 goals, 149 assists in 70 games. So 282 points. So 4 points a game, basically, per average. I'm like, can you imagine that happening now with how it seems parents react? I'm sure a parent would go fight him or something, like, because, they just think he's too good.
That is crazy. That is very much a video game stat, for sure. Okay, so from a hockey card perspective, we have Wayne Gretzky, which is his 1979 rookies are the most iconic hockey cards there are. Yep. I would argue, I don't know where the Lemieux 1985 Topps or O-Pee-Chee rookie would fall on iconic cards list, but for me, they're near the top as well, and treasured card by just about any hockey collector. I looked at his PSA 9 for both Topps and O-Pee-Chee. So the PSA 9 Topps is currently valued about $960. Population of 1,042. It's down about 15% in the past year. It's crazy to think about, Troy, that you could, not a real heavy pop, barely over 1,000. And for less than $1,000, you could have a PSA 9 Mario Lemieux rookie.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And then the O-Pee-Chee has definitely more value, a little bit lower pop. So 616 as compared to 1,042. It's just under $3,000 current value, down a lot within the last year, about 46%. So if you ever wanted to own an O-Pee-Chee 9 of Lemieux, it seems like now would be a pretty decent time to go ahead and pull the trigger on that if you've got the $3,000 disposable income.
That'd be nice. I definitely would buy one.
My birthday's coming up, just so you know. Okay, so we have Gretzky, we have Lemieux. I don't think very earth-shattering choices there. Maybe now it gets squirrely. We'll see. Who do you got next, Troy?
We'll see. I'm interested if you have this guy.
Wait. Before you mention that, one of the things that I'm really fascinated, I obviously know who's on my list, but point that I think is worth making is of all the selections we've done, so wait, this is round 4. So we did round 12. So we've made 14 selections so far and 0 current players. Will there be a current player on our Mount Rushmore? Let's find out. All right, Troy, who's next?
Well, it won't be my third player. There's a hint who it is. I had Mark Messier.
I did not.
Okay. I'm writing it down.
Who is he, and did he play hockey?
He did play hockey. But bald man. Yeah, so I had Mark Messier, obviously. So he played 25 seasons, 1,756 games, puts him third all time. He had 694 goals, 1,193 assists. The assists are third all time. The goals were ninth all time. Points, 1,887, which puts him third all time. Points per game, 1.07. Personally, I like to see him higher than 1. Little barometer I use. He is second all time for playoff points with 295. He's got 109 goals, which is second all time in the playoffs, and 186 assists, which is second all time in the playoffs. So that's kind of a little stat overview. He's a 6-time Stanley Cup champion, won 5 with the Oilers, 1 with the Rangers, and he is the only player to captain 2 teams to the Stanley Cup championship, from my research.
Yes, that'd be the Rangers and Edmonton.
Yeah,
right.
And I didn't see anyone else that's done it. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. From an awards and achievement perspective, this is where he doesn't have this full trophy case of awards. Obviously a Hall of Famer, 2-time MVP, 1-time Conn Smythe, 2-time Pearson. He's got all-star appearances. I was getting frustrated because I kept doing first teams, and then you would have more, and I was like,
the way the NHL awards work out, it's it's first, which I think is at the beginning of the season, or I don't care enough to really know, but I'm sure I'm wrong. But yeah, the point being is it gets really confusing. Yeah. So my big question on Messier is he the OG Draisaitl?
He might be. He might be. I don't know. But he's, at least with him, now Draisaitl obviously doesn't have this luxury, but Messier left and still won. Like
Draisaitl has never won, but he's lived in the shadow of McDavid, and so that's the question, right? How much to the degree?
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
Live in Gretzky's shadow.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, okay, let's that's his award thing. I just looked; it was 5-time first team All Stars, but adding everything else, it's probably a bunch more. Impact, for a city's team, his number 11 is retired by Edmonton and New York. He's retired by 2 teams. The real big key of him is he left Edmonton, went to New York, and helped the Rangers. He's kind of the reason they snapped their 54-year cup drought. It was kind of bringing him in and bringing his leadership in.
Yeah, leadership is definitely a word that a very strong word that I equate with Messier.
And they say, this is which you take it what you want. Articles, I don't have a specific, but he's considered one of the greatest leaders, and actually in sports, not just hockey, but in sports all around, just for how long he was a captain and led that team, or led the team. For his relevance, hype, he actually has an award named after him. There is a Mark Messier Award, which the NHL, it's an individual in the sport who leads by example on the ice, motivates his teammates, and is dedicated to community activities and charitable causes. So there's an actual award named after him. I believe he's the one that gives the award. I think he picks the player, at least that's what it was in the past. I don't know if it's changed. I would like to point out it's interesting they say example on the ice, because I know he's been suspended a couple times for cheap shots or punches to the head. I think he got a 10-game suspension once, but he's still active in the game. Obviously, studio analyst for ESPN, still involved with the Rangers and a ton of work with them. Just with him, I think it's this whole package of becoming one and being like this great, hockey leader, which I'm sure there's another guy on one of our lists that also was considered a great hockey leader. We'll see.
No, it's a good point. And this is where it's the whole, maybe not McDavid Draisaitl, because in fairness, they haven't won anything. But it's maybe a better example is the Pippen and Jordan, right? Where it's like, well, was Pippen so good because he played with Jordan? But then the flip side is, did Jordan win so much because he had Pippen, right? It's really tough question.
It's funny you say that.
Answer.
There was just, I think Phil Jackson just came out like within the last couple of days with a quote that people were jumping all over, how he said like Pippen was great no matter what or something. Maybe I can't remember, but it's an interesting topic. And I'm sure Pippen hates it because he's lived in that shadow forever, and there's not much he can do about it.
Yeah, and hopefully, I just want to restate it, just in case I didn't make the point clearly enough, is you could definitely make the case. The flip side of that could be true too, where you could say Gretzky might not have won as many Stanley Cups without Messier on his team either, right? So it's just a tough question to answer. But
it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that point up. I want to jump back to Gretzky. It was one of my things. One of the things I read, and I forgot to. I don't even know if I mentioned or I wrote it down, but I forgot to mention. It was very interesting with Gretzky because he said when he got to the league, he knew he was never going to be this physical presence. He was smaller. He didn't weigh a lot, so he knew if he could be really skillful and try to make everyone else better, that every team couldn't just cover him. They couldn't just all focus on Gretzky, put, two guys on him. He'd always find the other guys. And he said by making everyone else better, it actually made him better. So it's just a little unique perspective. Sure. And that triggered it when you said that.
Okay, so do you have any hockey card? Or are you done with stats and awards or anything else?
Done with all that. The hockey card, I was using Card Ladder, and obviously they have his rookie card in there. It's a PSA 10, 1980 OPG, Pop 43. It's 13.8 thousand. And which seems really low again for that. It does seem low. And if you keep going down the scale, you can just figure out from that, they're definitely attainable. If you want to go for mid-range or upper 6 or 5, you can definitely find them, and they're attainable. And it's a pretty cool card. He's like kind of bent over. Looks like he's had a face-off dot or something. But
okay, so we have Gretzky and Lemieux for sure.
Yep.
We have Messier in the maybe
bucket
section. You'll have to sweat it out a little bit.
All right.
He's not a unanimous choice, but he could be a choice.
Chilling in the visitor center.
Okay, so it's my turn. Yep. So I'm going to start with a question, Troy.
Okay.
When we're talking in the context of hockey players, if I said to you the captain, who would you say that would be?
Do you want me to answer your question? I already know it, I think.
Yeah, answer it honestly.
Steve Yzerman.
There you go. All right, we're done. No, it is Steve Yzerman. He played in 22 NHL seasons, all with the Red Wings. Speaking of the captain, right, which is his nickname.
Yep.
He was made captain of the Red Wings at age 21, served as the captain of the Red Wings for almost 2 decades, over 1,300 games. He's the longest serving captain of a team in league history, right? So we just talked about Messier from a leadership standpoint. I think you'd have to put Yzerman probably on a similar level, right? You're not known as the captain if you're not probably a good leader, and you're not the longest serving captain in league history for a single team. From a stats perspective, he's 7th all time in scoring with 1,755 points, 692 goals, which is 10th all time, 1,063 assists, which is 9th all time, 10-time All-Star, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, 97, 98, and 2002. He did win the Conn Smythe Award in 98. He also in 2002, he won the Olympic gold medal that year. So he's one of only a few players to win a Stanley Cup and a gold medal in the same year. I thought that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a cool stat.
Beyond that, Troy, I mean, I think if you're going to knock Yzerman's candidacy, he doesn't have like a ton of Hart trophies or
it's just like Messier.
Art Ross.
Just look like the same person.
Yeah, very, very, very similar in that regard. So not a lot there. I think winning and being part of winning and leading a winning team for so long is probably his biggest legacy. His number 19 is retired by both the Red Wings and Team Canada. So obviously he had a real big international impact. He's currently the executive vice president and GM of the Red Wings. He also served as the executive director of Team Canada for 2 Olympic Games. So again, another indication of his leadership prowess and abilities. Definitely still involved with the Detroit Red Wings franchise. From a hockey card perspective, to me, his rookie Troy might be the most criminally undervalued hockey card. If we had to, that's actually a good idea. Maybe we should rank most criminally undervalued rookies.
It definitely might be one. And I think our interviewee from last week, David Chow, would probably agree with that.
Yeah, hopefully you're happy, David, with my Yzerman pick. Notice Troy hasn't picked him so far. Wait, was Yzerman on your list? You never said.
He was. I just let you get you kept going. Yeah, I had
him. Okay. So Troy picked him too. Yeah, his 1984 OPG PSA 10. Again, to me, an iconic card. Has a pop, and we were fumbling this a little bit with our interview with David because none of us could remember. The pop is $122. The current value is $3,480. That's crazy.
That is, I think that fits our definition of criminally undervalued.
I just don't understand some, like, I would think if one went on eBay today that there would be 600 people racing to spend $3,500 on that
Well,
card.
I wonder, do you know when the last sale of that card was?
No. Yeah, I don't know really what much else to say about the captain, but it is kind of interesting, Troy, because now we have, for sure, right? Since you've nominated Yzerman, we have Yzerman, Lemieux, and Gretzky.
Yeah.
And Messier in the holding room. I guess the one player that I had.
Do I get to take a guess of who your next one is?
Yes, do that.
I think you might have given it away by saying a current player. So I'm going to say Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so before you go, I will say.
Yeah, you say first why you didn't nominate.
Yeah, well, so I was sitting there going back and forth between basically Messier, Yzerman, Crosby, Jean Bellevue, Esposito. And I almost got to the point where it was paralysis analysis, where I was just staring at the screen and looking at stats and everything. And I kind of just took a step back and big picture. That kind of brought me into Messier with all the cups and his leadership and leaving Edmonton and winning it. I kind of gave him a little plus for that. Plus his stats. He's in the top 10 of most of the things. And then Yzerman, once you read about him, I was pretty sold. Crosby, I just can't get sold on him right now. And I don't know if it's not like he hasn't played enough and he's got cups. And maybe it's just I don't like him whining all the time about being targeted.
Oh, like the Sidney Crosby kind of.
And he's probably got a valid
moniker
point. Even McDavid's said it, and I don't know if that played into my thinking of them. Like, you're not tough enough. But there's obviously with him, he's got concussions. It's not like it's a hidden thing. And if teams punch him in the head, it's kind of a jerk move to do that. But it's part of the game, so I don't know. I just go back and forth. I went back and forth. I mean, definitely Crosby was on my list, and then I settled on the Messier and Yzerman in that tier where he was.
Well, it wasn't a slam dunk for me either. And maybe I'll skip ahead on my talking points a little bit and get to the point that really kind of put me over the edge. And this is not quantitative, it's qualitative, right? It's a little bit anecdotal. But when I really thought about it and thought about when Crosby came into the league, to me, it was an important juncture where it was a transitionary period for the NHL, right? It wasn't exactly the timing, but it was shortly after you had Gretzky retiring, Lemieux was gone, Yzerman was gone, right? So even people in this honor Mount Rushmore and others, and he really, to me, picked up the baton as far as the face of the National Hockey League and helped kind of transition from that group of players into the, maybe the little bit more modern NHL game. Do you think I'm making stuff up there, or?
It's definitely a good point, because I had his hockey reference stuff pulled up because he came in 2005. Obviously Gretzky retired, 99? Is that what we think? 2000?
Yeah, 99, 2000. You had Yzerman in 2002. I know Lemieux was earlier than that. Yeah. So again, it's not perfect. I'm not saying it was perfect timing, but there was sort of it's kind of like what happened in the NBA after Jordan retired.
Yeah.
Right? And before LeBron came, is you had this little bit of a vacuum that was created when the Jordans and Barkleys and Olajuwons, right, had all, the sort of the group that had really been the face of the league and led the league began to retire. And now there was this new wave of players coming. He was the first kind of superstar to me that picked up the baton and became the face of the league. So to me, that's what pushed him over the edge. But just from a resume perspective, right, Sid the Kid is his nickname. He is, of course, very famously now will be the only current player to date to be nominated for a Mount Rushmore. Yep. So that's an important distinction that he holds. He was the first pick in the 2005 NHL draft. From and this is where the stats thing become a little weird because he is currently playing, but albeit they're not particularly impressive, right? So he's got 1,409 points, which is currently 22nd, 517 goals, 39th all time. 892 assists, which is 21st all time. And I didn't look in deep enough, Troy, to figure out, realistically, how many more years is he going to play? What's his points average been? What's the likelihood he stays healthy?
Yeah, I mean, his whole career is on if his concussions can stay away. I think if he gets knocked one more time real good, I think he's done. Personally, but
yeah. He's an 8-time All-Star, 2-time Hart Trophy winner in 2007, 2014, 2-time Art Ross Trophy winner in 07 and 14. 3-time Stanley Cup champion, 2009, 2016, 2017. He did win the Conn Smythe for the 2016 and 17 Cups. He's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist for Team Canada. To me, it's really about the era that he ushered in. I think from a hockey card perspective, he's even more interesting, and he's really the first example of the modern or ultra modern type of Cup RPA sort of rookie, right? Him and Ovechkin, of course, the same year, but it's an important transition where you go from like all the other more older players that we've talked about, whether it be obviously like Gretzky or Lemieux even, or Patrick Roy, right? It's just the OPG rookie card that doesn't have an autograph. It doesn't have an amazing patch. It's not a thick card. It's not, it's a little more plain or old school, albeit I think amazing cards, probably not as interesting of a card or fancy of a card, or however you want to put it. And so, to me, I think that's that's important from a hockey card perspective. So it's 2005, the Cup RPA numbered to 99 raw. Its current value is about $42,700, which again, let's go back. So 199 raw, right? It is an auto. It does have a patch, but you have Yzerman, who has 122, so not appreciably different, is $3,400 compared to 42, and that's a graded PSA 10, where this is a raw card, $42,700. So it's definitely more in the modern sort of collected type of valuable card.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm just trying to think Crosby, Messier, and they have their stat lines are just very similar. Crosby, most goals in a season was 51. Messier was 50. They've just been consistent for so long. Obviously, Crosby's still got more time to go. Hopefully. Not that I think, even though I'm still bitter at him for scoring maybe this is why I didn't include him. I just subconsciously, when he scored the overtime goal to beat Team USA in the Olympics, I can't remember which Olympic it was. I can remember the play clear as day as I envisioned it in my head. So maybe that's why I left that in my head to stew and I didn't pick him. But
this is a really tough one to me, Troy, because I think statistically Messier got a huge advantage, right?
I think statistically
scored a lot more,
and I think leadership wise too. But Crosby's been a captain, right? Or he is the captain, right? He's got it.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Well, and the 6 Stanley Cups, are so I think like from the winning perspective, it's hard to argue with 6 Cups. It's hard to argue with Messier's points, but overall importance to the game, even though the Messier is an incredible leader and he's got the leadership award named after him, can you really say that he's been more important to hockey than Sidney Crosby?
Yeah, I can't. And if you want to know how twisted and what the matrix we live in is like, guess who won the 2009-2010 Mark Messier Award?
Oh, Crosby. So you might have to give those back. Messier might be calling those back, saying, give them back to you. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to have 48 minutes of dead air while I sit and ponder this. I don't know.
Yeah,
here's I got an on-air production meeting.
Okay.
I say we let the listeners vote.
Let the listeners vote?
And let them decide who deserves the spot, Messier or Crosby.
Can we run a poll?
And put it to a vote?
Can you do a poll on Instagram?
I think we can. Should we do that?
And you have to give No, I'm just kidding. No, I would love to see a poll. Like, I think we could sit here and argue. I could probably be convinced on Crosby. But I think it would be interesting. Let's let the readers chime in. And actually, I'm curious to see the comments when they blow up and say, well, where's Esposito? Jean Bellevue, look at him. I sat there and I just shrugged and rubbed my temples looking at his stats. But off the top of my head, it was just like 10-time Cup winner, 17-time Cup. His name's on the cup 17 times as an executive. He was a great player, and I just couldn't. I kept coming back to like Messier and Yzerman for the what they did in their game. But no, yes, I'm all for it. I don't think it's a cop out. I think we could sit here and ponder it some more. But I would like to hear the listeners on these two give us their final opinion.
Yeah, I just honestly, and no, we didn't set this up this way, so I don't want any cynical people. This is really. I just feel like the next 48 minutes would be me thinking and talking occasionally and trying to make a point and then contradicting my own point. And the sake of everybody, I think it's better because I honestly think this is a hard choice. Yeah. I don't, like you said, you could be convinced on Crosby. I can convince myself that Messier is a better choice, and we'll go from there. Okay, so within the, I don't even know how to do a poll. I know you can because I've seen them, but we'll do it on Instagram. So if you're listening to this and you have not followed the Hockey Cards Gong Show on Instagram, definitely do so, and please participate because this means a lot to both Sydney and Mark.
Yeah,
we've talked to them personally. I mean, how many times has Mark called you today?
Yeah, a couple to make sure his case was heard. And just to let people know too, if you you haven't subscribed or you do subscribe or you see the poll come up, put comments in though. Like, let us know your thoughts because there's always room for discussion. Like, we never take any offense to anything. It's just general knowledge, discussion, us learning from you guys, and hopefully you learn something from us. So please be interactive.
All right, so it's a first for the Mount Rushmore. We have 3 confirmed. We have Yzerman, this guy named Wayne, that everybody's heard of, and Mario Lemieux, Super Mario. And we'll let the listeners decide between, and hopefully there's more than one vote, but all we do need is one vote. So I think we're good with one vote. It should be really interesting to see how it turns out. And then next week we'll do our final Mount Rushmore, where we will attempt to take all four position groups and 5, right wing, left wing, center, defense, goal, all 5 position groups.
Oh, poor goalies! How could I forget about the goalies?
Yeah, poor goalies, and come up with our ultimate hockey Mount Rushmore.
Now next week.
Okay, Troy.
Next week we're not just going to say, okay, here we go, Mount Rushmore of all the players. Fans, let's have you a vote. Here's 20 names. You guys tell us what. We actually we'll come to a consensus next week.
Okay. All right, a couple more things before we wrap up today. Want to hit new product releases a little bit, Troy. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday the 16th. Extended is scheduled to come out on the 17th. I don't want to say that with great certainty because last week Black Diamond was delayed a day or two. So within either it's today as you're listening to this or within the next day or two, Extended should be out. Weirdly, though, I have seen a couple people ripping boxes as early as last week on Instagram. I'm not sure how that happened or what Upper Deck would think about that, but yeah. Pre-sales still in about the $95 range. We have the preview that's up on our Instagram page. You can feel free to check that out if you want to look at any of the Young Guns, key Young Gun checklist, any of the inserts. It seems like not to be, and this is the second year, it's good to mention, for Extended, where it's a good product in that it allows sort of the late bloomers and late comers to the Young Gun game to have a place. As you recall, we had Shesterkin in, I think it was SP Authentic one year, where they occasionally have had to kind of jam these guys into different products. So naturally, it'll be probably the weakest Young Guns group of the class, but there might be a couple, like there's Kaliev last year, Bunting was another one from Extended. So there might be some BC, but I think a lot of people are excited about the inserts. There's some retro inserts, and this is where we get the holographics. There should be some more dazzlers, that sort of thing. So I'm anticipating, Troy, that people will be fairly into the product. Any player or thing that Extended that you're excited about or looking forward to?
I put in the show notes. I said no, not really. I went through the whole checklist. Look, I do like some of the inserts, but again, there's nothing really that stands out to me. I don't want to steal yours, but I am interested in the player you like just because, as our friendship, we've been friends for a long time, and now you from your same hometown. So I am curious about his card, and actually really watching him in the playoffs and seeing how well he did is kind of led me to probably I'm the most excited about him. But I'll let you say his name. Yeah,
so I'm from Hibbing, Minnesota, the Iron Range. And one of our kid from my hometown, Scott Prunovich, we call him Scotty, is a defenseman for the St. Louis Blues. He really started his career in the playoffs, has had a lot of injury issues, was a Hobie Baker winner from University of Minnesota Duluth, and of course was really effective against the Wild in the playoffs, especially on the power play. He's a little bit more of an offensive defenseman, sort of in the vein of, that we're seeing now with like the Makars and Foxes. So yeah, for me, it's definitely someone that I'm going to be buying. There's a hometown connection for sure. I think that because of the injury issue, he's a little underrated. And it was pretty tough to essentially start your career in the playoffs and to be captaining the power play for the Blues because they had lost Krug and I think someone else off their blue line was really impressive way for him to start. And so he's definitely someone I'll be looking forward to picking up. And then, so I think beyond extended, Troy, I feel like Clear Cut is still the most likely release after that. There has been not a lot of movement, I guess, so to speak, but Steel City did push their release date back from the 24th of August to the 31st. Now, Blowout still shows the 24th. David Adams' website was down earlier today when I was looking at it, so I wasn't able to get that date. There's no checklist released, and so again, we've talked a lot to this point about that's really the clearest indication that a release is imminent when a checklist comes out. So I don't know if there's really much definitively we can say, but I still think Clear Cut would be next. Beyond Extended, and remember, guys, this is a 2020 product, so it's going to be Kaprizov, Lafreniere, Stützle, Cozens, and it's a high risk, high reward product. It's a one card box, about $150 from a pre-sale perspective.
I was just going to jump in real quick. I checked Clouts and Char, and they show August 24th as well. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it was the 31st, especially with Extended coming out this week. But again, that's likely the next release. So we'll keep monitoring the situation and let people know when we see a checklist. Again, the published checklist is really the most definitive indication whether or not it's coming up. Okay, Troy, personal pickups.
All right.
Did you buy anything this week?
I did buy some things, about 2 things. Haven't even opened them yet, though. So first thing was a hobby box of 2021-22 OPG. Obviously, if you followed our Instagram, you saw we did a box opening of one box, and I plan on recording this box as well, and we will publish the results and give just another example / data point and view of what happens when you open a hobby box. Could be garbage, like Josh has said with the Platinum box, that is going down in the Guinness World Record as the worst hobby box ever. Or it could be good, like your last OPG hobby box where you got some really nice stuff. And then I also bought and this kind of came from me and Josh kind of just talking, and I think we were at a card show and we were kind of talking about this, but I bought a box of 2020-21 Upper Deck AHL hockey. I've never bought AHL hockey before, and it was ridiculously cheap for a box. I think it was $35. So I figured let's buy one. It will be a good rip, film it, see what we hit. I think could be some interesting stuff in there, like Zegras, I think, is in there. And there's a bunch of good, like Robertson. There's a bunch of good rookies with autos and stuff. So obviously AHL stuff, but it'll be interesting.
And you do get one auto, at least a box, right?
Yeah. I think it's more. It might be more than that. While you talk, I will look at it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, so from my perspective, this week actually maybe took a little bit of my own advice, which is kind of interesting because I rarely seem to do that. I bought 2 cards. I bought a 2019 Exquisite Adam Fox rookie auto, numbered to 199. I got it for around $117. I just feel like that's a good, maybe a little more of a longer term hold for me, but probably one that I'll flip at some point. And then going back to our 2020-2021 Hockey Cards recaps, or we did on Instagram, the team by team recaps. When we had done the Devils, it always stood out to me last year that Jesper Bratt led the team in points. I think it was 73 points last year, and his Young Guns values are just dirt cheap. Yeah. And so I picked up, I've been looking for deals and trying to find the right deal. And I got a 2017 Young Guns canvas for $12.
Nice.
And thought, again, it's a little bit of a risk reward thing. I don't know if I'll come back to the pack this year, but they are building up. They're added a lot of good young players. It is a team on the rise. If he could even get into the 80, 90 point range, that could be a big win for me. So I got the 2019 Exquisite Adam Fox rookie auto and the Jesper Bratt Young Guns canvas. Yeah,
I think those are definitely 2 great pickups. One autograph in the AHL box.
All right, guys. Well, that is our show for the week. Thank you, everyone, again, for your continued support of not only the podcast, but our social media channels. If you're not following us on TikTok or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, we're at Hockey Cards Gongshow at each. Please give us a follow and send us a message, interact, engage. What we're trying to do is build a community of collectors and investors, and would love for you all to participate. I hope you have a great week. Have fun with Extended. We can't wait to come back next week and talk about a how those cards are doing and what they're selling for.